welcome to Out of Bounds. I am your host, James Skrmetta. Another episode, another big-time episode. We're stacked today. Honestly, we are absolutely stacked. We have so much stuff to talk about. Saints, Cowboys, prime time last night. We've got, of course, the MLS Minute. We have how I did on the picks that I gave y'all. Spoiler alert, I was on fire again. This is starting to get unbelievable. We'll get to that in a minute. Also, the NCAA, pure chaos. Pure, unadulterated chaos. I'm also going to deliver my top 5, the updated top 5. So we have every segment we've created pretty much is in this show. We're talking winners. We're talking my top 5. We're talking how I did. We're talking the MLS Minute. It's all over the place. Too much to do. Just stick on the intro. But don't forget, there's multiple ways to listen to the show or get to the show. You can listen by subscribing and downloading on iTunes. You can also just go to my website, jamesskrmetta.com. On Mondays, Fridays, this show, the audio version will be on the website around noon. We shoot for about noon. The video version on Mondays is a little bit later because we do the audio first and we have to do the show the same day we're publishing it. So, and then on YouTube, if you want to watch the simulcast, you can subscribe to YouTube and you see my face, which, not everything can be perfect. All right, so let's jump into this thing. Last night, Saints, Cowboys, prime time. Drew Brees was playing. Drew Brees was active. He was starting. He came back after a week off. The Luke McCown show is over. And I told all of y'all, I said, forget about Luke McCown. He's a placeholder. He's a backup. He did his job. He backed up Drew Brees when Drew Brees was hurt. That's it. Luke McCown is not an option. He's not someone that you should talk about. He's not someone that you should be like, well, we could play him. We could. Nope. No. It's Drew Brees' show. It's Drew Brees' show forever. Told y'all to relax. Let Brees do Brees things. And finally, the streak is over. The Saints got a home win and just a win in general. They're not winless. Now they have a win. The potential 7-game home losing streak is snapped. They are now on a 1-game home winning streak. So that we got to build on that. And it was against the Cowboys, against Brandon Weeden. And they almost blew it. Honestly, the first half, they looked terrible, the Saints. They looked so bad. So bad. And whenever Lance Dunbar fumbled in the end zone or whatever, and they gave it to the Cowboys as a touchdown, and it was 10-7, I thought it was over. I thought, send the band home, take your shoes off, everyone just go home. Because the Saints could not move the football. I could not believe how efforting every single yard was. I mean, I've never seen a team that struggled so mightily to just move the ball forward. Like not even to complete a pass or to block or to do whatever. Just move the ball forward. In the first half, it looked like it took every single thing the Saints had just to do that. And somehow, they came out in the second half. The Cowboys completely stopped what they were doing offensively. And the Saints went up 20-13. And they almost blew it. They pretty much played prevent defense the entire way down a 90-yard drive that Brandon Weeden executed in about 40 seconds after the worst play calling I've ever seen. With about 4 minutes left, the Saints run 2 incomplete pass plays and a run out of bounds to take no time off the clock when they could have killed probably, a minute 30, 2 minutes almost with just run the ball, wait, run the ball, wait, run the ball, wait. But instead, they gave the Cowboys all the time in the world, and Weeden sliced them up, tied it, went to overtime because they missed the field goal. And then the Saints won in overtime with a beautiful play to C.J. Spiller right off the bat. Lock it up, go home, go to Bourbon Street, first round's on me. Now, there's a lot of takeaways from the game because, this was number one a primetime game, so the whole world was watching. And there's a lot to digest of what we watched. And luckily, you have me to tell you what to think. One takeaway from the game is Rob Ryan is getting the defense figured out. He's getting some players back, and they're not the liability that they were. Okay? sometimes under Rob Ryan, this defense has looked so like Swiss cheese, just porous, just holes everywhere, nothing you can do, no one can be stopped, and a lot of that has to do with injury. Rob Ryan's had a lot of, Jarius Byrd hasn't played much at all. Vaquero has been hurt. Keenan Lewis has been hurt. He's lost a bunch of secondary players. He lost Junior Gillette. So you can sit back and be like, okay, I understand that Rob's dealing with some things. And last night, he had the defense looking right. And I know it's against Brandon Whedon. I understand that. I know it's against a mixture of Lance Dunbar, Joseph Randle, and whoever else we're throwing out there. I understand that it's Terrence Williams and Cole Beasley. But what Rob Ryan wants to do is he wants to blitz your brains out, right? He wants to blitz you nonstop, pretty much. Well, the only way to blitz is if you have people in the secondary who can play man, who can hold on to their man long enough to the blitz can get to the quarterback, or at least pressure the quarterback. Because in the NFL, you don't have that much time to throw anyways. So if you send a blitz, you really get to the offense. And the Cowboys have one of the best offensive lines in football. That's why DeMarco Murray had all the yards he had. That's why they can run the ball how they do. That's why they've kind of changed their offense to just let the offensive line dominate the line of scrimmage. They run the ball around, and that's it. And for most of the game, I thought the Saints pass rush and the Saints defense, especially the defensive line, were dominating the line of scrimmage. I mean, there was no push from the Cowboys' offensive line, and that's something you really want to see. Because I thought the big problem was going to be the Cowboys were just going to punish us with the run. We were not going to be able to stop them. It was going to set up a lot of like 2nd and 4s, 3rd and 3s, and Whedon was going to be able to dink and dunk his way down the field. But that didn't happen. The Saints looked great blitzing. They looked great defensively, especially on the defensive line, and that was what changed the game. And like I said, a lot of that has to do with Keenan Lewis and Jarius Byrd being back. Even though Keenan Lewis is not playing as the lockdown number one every down corner that he was, him being in and out of the field, Jarius Byrd being on the field, Vaccaro being on the field, all these people are giving Rob Ryan the ability for him to go out there and do what he wants to do. It's giving him the chance to say, okay, I can dial in blitzes. I'm not afraid to blitz on 3rd down. I'm not afraid to blitz on long passing downs because I know that I have these guys who, even though Keenan Lewis isn't 100%, he might not ever be, even though he's not who he was, he's still good enough to hold people down and allow for these dynamic blitz packages. And Delvin Breaux, he did, bless his heart, and he did his damnedest. He is the most handsy cornerback I've ever seen in my entire life. I mean, Bill Cosby is telling this guy to watch where he's touching. All right? Delvin Breaux could have been flagged on probably 8 to 15 passes last night. Just that I saw. There's no telling what's happening when they're not showing it. He is nonstop all over the wide receiver. And he came from the CFL. I don't know. I have never watched 5 minutes of the CFL, so I can't tell you if they're a little more physical, if they, I have no idea. But I know that Delvin Breaux, 9 out of 10 times, the way he's covering these receivers is going to get flagged. So we got lucky in a lot of situations last night. He got flagged on a few, but it could have been a lot more. He was targeted all night. And that is not easy to play defensive back in the NFL. So kudos to Delvin Breaux for just hanging in there. But that was my first takeaway, that the defense looked better. Next, I know this show is the best in the business. I know that. I've been telling y'all that. But apparently Sean Payton knows that too. Because what did I say last week? What offense did I tell y'all to run? Take everything in to about 20 yards and let Breeze just kind of pick apart the defense. Don't try and stretch it out, whatever. Drew Brees, 33 for 41 attempts, 359 yards, 2 touchdowns. Literally exactly what I said to do. Sean Payton must be a big fan of the show. Drew Brees, I don't think, besides the C.J. Spiller 80-yard pass, I don't think there was a completion of more than 20 yards the whole game. It was just nonstop, just dinking and dunking, little screens here, little slants here, little this here, just perfect. And there was a lot of plays where Breeze did his signature, step up in the pocket, find somebody. And that Luke McCown cannot do that. There's a reason that Luke McCown is Luke McCown and Drew Brees is Drew Brees. Just because Drew Brees doesn't have the arm he used to doesn't mean he can't be effective. He can be effective. You just have to change what you're doing. Not the same player. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's the whole point I've been trying to make. There is nothing wrong with Drew Brees not being this spread out the field, throw it all over the place, 55 times a game, 50-yard bombs. That's fine. That's over. And it's fine. I hope to see a lot more of this. I hope to see a lot more of that offensive thinking of we're just going to slow it down. We're just going to run the ball, a lot with Mark Ingram. We're going to set up a lot of 3rd and 6s, 3rd and 5s. We're going to set up a lot of these short distances to the marker, and we're going to let Breeze and his cast of characters kind of make plays. And you saw last night perfect examples of that. My biggest takeaway, though, from the game is that this team has to run through C.J. Spiller. And that's a weird thing to say because he's been virtually non-involved in every game except last night. And he wasn't really involved until the end. When you're running an offense where you're living and dying on screen passes, on short passes, on quick plays, on stuff like that, you have to have people who can win in space. You have to have people who can catch the ball at the line of scrimmage, make people miss, get upfield, and have enough dynamic playability to make 3-yard plays into 11-yard plays. That's what you have to have. And players that excel in those situations are players that create mismatches. Running backs are slot people who mismatch against linebackers, or fast wide receivers who mismatch against safeties. That's who you need. And that's what C.J. Spiller is. It's kind of funny because the player you really want right now is like Reggie Bush. Not the now Reggie Bush, but a Reggie Bush 4 years ago would be perfect in this system. C.J. Spiller should be in 75 to 80% of offensive snaps. Bottom line. Write it down, sign it, seal it, deliver. Even Stevie can see. C.J. Spiller last night was dynamic on every single touch he had. Whether he was running, whether it was a pitch, whether it was a stretch play, whether it was a screen, whether it was a pass to him in the flats, he was dynamic. And if he can do this against a Cowboys defense, who is granted gouged with injuries, but he can take over the games. And C.J. Spiller is not a guy who doesn't have any kind of like a resume. At one point in Buffalo, which is not easy to be an offensive dynamo in that, up there. He was a top 4 running back. He was a top 4 player in the league. He kind of had that Chris Johnson, give him the ball, let him see what he can do with it. And that's what C.J. Spiller is. That's what he was at Clemson. Look, if I'm Sean Payton, I'm doing whatever I can to get C.J. Spiller the ball. Perfect world, perfect Saints situation. He should have, I'd say, 6 to 10 carries. 10 might be a lot. 6 to 8, somewhere in there, carries, pitches, stretch plays, whatever. You don't need to run him up the middle like you would Ingram. That's what Ingram's there for. But 6 to 8, 6 to 10 touches as far as a running back. And then I would target him 10 to 12 times. You know how Pittsburgh uses Le'Veon Bell? They run him. They put him out wide. He's used more of a receiver. He's like the best receiver besides Antonio Brown whenever he's out there. That's what I would do with Spiller. He's the best receiver on the team, in my opinion. He's the most dynamic, best offensive receiver you have. Get him out there. Get him in the slot. If you put C.J. Spiller in the slot, you've got him matched up one-on-one with linebackers or one-on-one with safeties. That is a mismatch you can take advantage of every single time. He can dominate, and the Saints have got to let him dominate. He has to be the focal point of the offense moving forward. That is the only way the Saints will be as dynamic as they once were. They've got to get C.J. Spiller involved. Have to get him involved until he gets hurt. Looking forward for the Hoodats. This Sunday they go to Philadelphia, winnable game. Philly always looks terrible. I thought they'd be good. You thought they'd be good. Everyone thought they'd be good. They're not. So that's a winnable game. Tough game on the road. I understand, but do what you did against Dallas. C.J. Spiller, defense, and Breeze throwing the ball for 33 completions. Then we have Thursday night. Atlanta comes to the Dome. Atlanta looks pretty damn good, and I don't know if we can stop Julio Jones. But in the Dome, might be some magic. Thursday night games are a toss-up anyways. Then we go to Indy. Indy has looked bad all year. Andrew Luck should be back at that point, you would believe. But you got to like your chances against the Indy team we've seen. Then we play the Giants and Tennessee in the Dome. So New York comes to town, then Tennessee. New York's been playing good. I don't think we can stop those receivers. Odell Beckham Jr. is going to be lighting it up. This close to his home. Then we go to Washington and to Houston. Those are all winnable games. The only games that I would say are probably not going to happen is New York and Atlanta. But you're looking at Philly, Atlanta, Indy, New York, Tennessee, Washington, and Houston. That's the next 7 games. I mean, there's no reason you can't go 4-3 in those games. There's no reason you can't. I mean, those are not tough games. The Saints have an easy schedule. This part of the schedule, at least, with a lot of underperforming teams. So I think they need a gun for 4-3. One of those situations. Even 3-4 is not terrible. All right, guys, that's enough of the Saints talk. Let's go into how I did with the winners that I gave y'all. We're running up against the clock. It's getting a little nasty. How I did. Guys, I can't stop winning. I cannot stop winning. And it's not one of those things where I'm telling y'all that I'm winning. Like, I picked this team. And everyone's like, yeah, I'm sure you did, bro. I'm sure you did. This is all documented. These videos are all published on a certain date, and they just sit on my YouTube channel. Anybody can go look at the Friday shows and see who I picked. I even have the little schedule of the topics, so you don't have to listen to the whole show. You can just go to a Friday show, fast forward until it gets on the winners, and then see who I picked, and then go look at the results. I cannot stop winning. Tonight we have Detroit and Seattle. What was my pick? I don't even know. My pick was I think my pick was Seattle and the under. But anyways, right now in college, Saturday I went 3-1. 3-1. Only loss being Ole Miss. Ole Miss -7 missed. TCU -15 check. Arkansas +7 check. Clemson -1 against Notre Dame check. Last week, I went 3-0 in college. So I'm 6-1 over 2 weeks in college. What the pro game, you ask? Well, I'll tell you. Philly -3, miss. Carolina -3, check. Green Bay, Frisco under 48.5, the biggest check. NOLA -3, check. I'm 3-1 right now, sitting here with the games tonight. In the past 2 weeks, I'm 6-1 in college. In the past 3 weeks, I'm 11-3 in the NFL. For a grand total on the year, college I'm 10-7, NFL I'm 14-6. For a total of 24-13. Right now I'm the greatest gambler of all time. In the nation, I'm the hottest picker in the nation. I mean, in the past 3 weeks, I'm 17-4 combined with college and NFL. There's no one on earth that can say that. So, I mean, not only are you getting the sports talk that your local radio can't do, you're also getting money. You're also getting cold, hard dollar. All right, let's go ahead and break into this. Let's go ahead and get into the MLS Minute. We are running up against the clock. Hopefully I can finish this in a timely manner for you guys. Here we go. Play the music. The scarf is on. It wasn't on last week. Play the music. Here we go. Friday night, DC United picked up a huge win at home against New York FC. Things were looking pretty bleak after allowing a first-minute goal to Frank Lampard, but a 72nd-minute Fabian Espindola goal tied it up before some late heroics from Alvaro Saborio in the 92nd minute gave DC the 3 points. Saturday, 6 games, 17 goals on this beautiful Saturday in October. Philadelphia is officially eliminated from playoff possibilities following a 3-1 loss against Toronto. Anyone want to guess who scored for Toronto FC? If you said Sebastian Giovinco, then you would be correct. Goals from Seba, Josie Altidore, and a Richie Marquez own goal sealed it up for OVO FC. And OVO FC sounds so cool. How is that not their name? If Drake buys them and they're OVO FC, whoa. I mean, they're selling all the shirts. Somebody forgot to tell interim coach Brian Bliss of the Chicago Fire that they weren't supposed to win anymore. The worst team in the Eastern Conference beat New England 3-1 off goals from David Akam, Harry Shipp, and Gilberto. In a game between two sides hoping for playoff glory, New York Red Bulls dispatched of the Columbus Crew 2-1 with goals from Lloyd Sam and Bradley Wright Phillips. The loss drops Columbus to 4th in the East with just 2 games remaining. San Jose will not die. San Jose faced a tall task against second-place Vancouver. A loss would end their playoff hopes, but a 1-1 tie off a Chris Wondolowski goal keeps them right on life support just for now. Another Canadian team falls as the red-hot Montreal Impact fell 2-1 to the Orlando City Walt Disney's. Goals from rookie Kyle Larin and Seb Hines lifted the Orlando Cacas to a victory. The final game of Saturday was a good one. Sporting Kansas City used the momentum from their midweek U.S. Open Championship win to defeat the Portland Timbers 1-0 on the foot of a Christian Nemeth 83rd minute strike. Nemeth also scored the U.S. Open Championship goal, so he is running a little hot. Sunday gave us 3 games. FC Dallas put on a scoring rampage against in-state rivals, the lowly Houston Dynamo. A brace from David Teixeira and goals from Mauro Diaz and Kellen Acosta sent Houston home with absolutely nothing. The Rocky Mountain Cup was up for grabs when Real Salt Lake took on the Colorado Rapids. Guess what? Even though Real Salt Lake took home a 2-1 win on the goals of João Plata and Luke Mulholland, Colorado somehow retains the cup off of goal differentials. I asked for explanation, but Colorado officials were too busy rolling up a fat, juicy blunt. And finally, the game everyone wanted to see, LA versus Seattle. The game was short on goals, but high on drama. LA pulled ahead with a 36-minute goal from Robbie Keane, but a 93-minute goal at the absolute last seconds of the game from Chad Barrett gave Seattle the improbable draw. 1 point goes to each team. Playoffs are... there's 2 games remaining in the regular season for all the teams, so playoffs are coming up. I cannot wait for the MLS playoffs. That has been your MLS Minute. We have about 5 minutes left in the show, so let's get to the rest of this. The NCAA is absolutely bonkers right now. Saturdays are just chaos. It's just like, okay, here's the top 5, here's the top 10, implosion, here's a new top 5, here's a new top 10, implosion. That's all that's going on. Ohio State, they look more vulnerable every single week, and everyone else just loses. My top 5 last week was absolutely throttled. My new top 5, my top 5 last week was Ohio State, Ole Miss, Michigan State, Georgia, and LSU. Ohio State barely beat Indiana. Ole Miss got smacked around. Michigan State barely beats anybody. They barely beat Purdue. Georgia. Mark Richt should be fired. Bottom line. You cannot do that at home in a game that's that important with that on the line. You can't do it. Richt should be fired. I like him as far as what he's done, but that was a no-show at home from Georgia. I had LSU number 5. So my new top 5. Let's unveil it. Ohio State stays at 1. Got to give them the benefit of the doubt. They haven't lost in over a year. Defending champs, probably the most talent on the team. I'll give them some more chances. Number 2, Baylor comes from nowhere. Bottom line, in a nation of teams that can't score, and you have Baylor who's putting up 60 points a game against everyone. I mean, they beat a TCU team a Texas Tech team to death, and that same Texas Tech team almost beat TCU, and Baylor hung 63 on them. I don't know any team in the nation who I'd be like, yeah, they can hang with Baylor. Baylor just scores. I mean, there's like Bama and Georgia, Tennessee, and like Florida, all these other teams, they barely put up points. They barely get to 28. Baylor gets to 28 in the first 4 minutes of the game. I don't know any team that'd be confident in saying, yeah, we'll keep up with Baylor. So Baylor's my number 2 team. Number 3, TCU has found their way back into my heart. TCU is Trevone Boykin is doing everything I said he would do when I picked him for the Heisman, and then they went out and almost lost to Minnesota. He just throws for 6 touchdowns every game, and they score 60, 70 points too. That's just what's going to win in college football nowadays. Scoring these points, doing all this stuff, that's what teams have to do. Because the days of like Alabama smash mouth, big, strong defenses, those days are over, Jack. The new days are scoring 60, 70 points with spread out offenses and mobile. It's video games. It's video game numbers. Number 4 for me is Utah. They were on the bubble last week. They keep winning. They've had the convincing wins. Right now, I mean, they're punishing people, and they're a mixture of both. They're a mixture of the old school smash mouth defenses and the new school we can score with anybody. And number 5, LSU stays the same. SEC team got to keep them in. They're undefeated. Leonard Fournette runs for 240 yards every game, so they're in there. This is the first time since 2010 that an SEC team has not been in the AP top 25, AP top 5. Excuse me. LSU is the highest rated SEC team right now at 7. Why? Northwestern is ranked number 13. Do you know that? Northwestern is ranked number 13 in the nation. LSU right now is probably the best team in the SEC. Them and Texas A&M. But LSU has the impossible task of playing Bama and Ole Miss both on the road in back-to-back weeks. That ain't going to work. That ain't going to happen. If they win both of those, send them to the playoffs. That is incredible. If they can split those, the SEC is going to be really, really interesting because Bama they 5 turnovers against Ole Miss. You can argue that they should have beat Ole Miss, but they didn't. So they have a loss. They beat Georgia to death. And Georgia was a team that everyone thought, this is a team that could fight for the playoffs. No, you don't lose that game at home. You're not a playoff contender if you lose that game at home. So Bama annihilated them. If Bama can do Bama things and just go through the rest of their schedule, beat LSU, beat all these other teams, Bama's going to go into the playoffs. And Bama's win at Georgia is more impressive to me than Ole Miss's win at Bama. I understand it's Tuscaloosa. I understand that it's Bama. But Ole Miss had 5 turnovers in their favor. They had a freak play, the Chad Kelly bobble turnaround pass. Alabama just beat the hell out of Georgia. In between the hedges. Just beat the hell out of them. Just took their lunch money. They're eating Salisbury steak for days. So, if I had to bet on one of these SEC teams to come out into the playoffs, I might have to bet on Bama. Which is crazy because I don't think Bama's that good. But Coker, the way he was spinning it against Georgia, the way the defense looked, if that Bama team can play like that the rest of the year, then they're going to go into the playoffs. Because I just don't think LSU, it's just so hard to go back-to-back like that. And you got to think, Leonard Fournette, he's got to slow up. You can't count on him to have 240 yards every single game. He's going to be hurting after those 2 weeks with Bama and Ole Miss. The SEC's a mess. I do not think that they will. I don't think they're even close to the level of team that Baylor, TCU, Ohio State, all these teams are. To be honest. And I'm an SEC guy. I'm down here in SEC country. I watch them all the time. I watch their games every week. I have watched their games every week. The SEC is just built. You know how we used to say that the SEC was built like the right way? The big, strong, tough guys who beat you up, and none of these other teams could handle it? Well, now it's flipped. Because all the other teams are built like these fast, high-powered offenses, fly around the field. And that's what college football is now. They tried to do that. They tried to do that back in the day with, the Oklahomas and the Texas, with Sam Bradford and Colt McCoy, and even the Texas Techs and those teams. They tried to be like this, or Oklahoma State. Now that's what's in. That's what you have to do to win. That's what these teams are doing to win. And I don't think the SEC, if they played Baylor, Like if you stifle Baylor and Baylor scores 35 points, there's not an SEC team that can keep up with that. Like what SEC team would you be like? Oh yeah, they can score 40 points and keep up with Baylor. Who is Leonard Fournette going to run for 450? Is Jacob Coker going to get in a duel? I mean, who do you think? Florida? Is Florida for real? I don't know. College football is confounding me right now, to be honest. But I think that the best teams, like my top 5 says, I think the best teams are. If I had to pick a national champion, if I had to pick a playoff, I'd be pretty confident with Ohio State, Baylor, TCU, Utah, that top 4. I'd be pretty confident right there. And if I had to pick one, I'd probably pick Baylor. Baylor's probably playing as the best team in the country right now. They're probably playing the best in the nation as far as offensively. Everything's clicking. Baylor right now is best team in the nation. Okay, that is going to be the show. We ran up against the clock here. Had a lot to get through, and we got through it like only I can do. If you haven't already, subscribe on iTunes, download it, or subscribe on YouTube, whatever your preference is. If you want audio, or if you want video, whatever. Also, do not forget, let your local sports station know what they're missing. Let them know, hey, that guy you got behind the mic, tell him to put an egg in his shoe and beat it. I got a guy for you. I got a guy that can get the ratings up. Where are you listening from? New Orleans? Mobile? Hattiesburg? Birmingham? Let them know. Let them know what they're missing. Let's do big things together. I am your host, James Skrmetta, and this has been another great episode of Out of Bounds. Enjoy the rest of your week, guys.